Okay, so the delay is not there. Fantastic. Hey there, Heather, ho there. It's Jeff Cutter Diamond welcoming you to this prime New England Patriots stream because it is getting close to the Super Bowl. And no, the Super Bowl isn't today. The Pro Bowl's not even today. Are doing those Pro Bowl games on Tuesday. And it's like, why can't they just do the Pro Bowl on Sunday? I mean, they go through all this trouble with the Pro Bowl being the week before the Super Bowl, and they won't put it on the Sunday. I mean, you have NBA basketball, sure. Well, the NHL has the Stadium Series on today between the Bruins and Lightning, and basically they said that's our TV time. Well, ESPN is kind of there, ABC, so yeah, they pride a outdoor game. Well, they have to kind of do it today because the Olympics are coming up on Friday. Can you believe it? We're 5 days away from the Olympics, starting in Italia, in Milan and Cortina. Now, this is the first time the Olympics are in Milan and not the first time in Cortina. People forget that Cortina hosted the Olympics the Winter Olympics, that is, in 1956. So 7 decades have passed since Cortina got to host the Winter Olympics and all that. And let me think, what was the highlight of the 1956 Winter Olympics? I would say Tenley Albright, U.S. figure skater, but I think that was 52 in Oslo. Yeah, I don't know much about that. So anyhow, so you're here for the New England Patriots, of course. So anyway, next Sunday will be the 12th time, and ironically, with the same number 12. So this is the 12 for the New England Patriots. And ironically, it's the 12th time the Patriots will be in the Super Bowl. So the Pats are 6-5 in Super Bowls. They have 11 appearances, the most by any team. Second is 8 with the Steelers, and I think the Cowboys. But yeah, 11 times. So the Patriots lead in Super Bowl appearances. If they could just freaking win over the Seattle Seahawks, they will break the tie with the Pittsburgh Steelers for most Super Bowls by a franchise. And no, New England didn't have the most Super Bowl wins by a franchise at 80 points. Pittsburgh has always had the 6. And the Patriots had, 3 in the 2000s and then 3 in the 2010s. So, yeah. Pittsburgh already had 6. So, anyway, yeah, everything will be big. Next Sunday will be a Super Bowl stream. I'm not planning on going anywhere, and I don't think anyone's going to invite me to anything. So, we will be watching the Super Bowl and all that. I will throw together my own Super Bowl halftime for you guys who don't want to watch the Super Bowl halftime. You can hear me belt out a medley of songs, Cutter style. So I will be practicing for that. Actually, no. You know what? I know some people of you thinking, should I sing or should I do comedy during halftime? I think I'll put that out into my thing. So let's see here. For the pulse pull to see. So so I'm going to post that up. I'm going to just create this post. I'm going to create a post and all that. So yeah, so what should I do during my Super Bowl halftime? Jeez. I think I set something up. At halftime. Okay, so option 1. All right, so, yep. So you get your, so the poll is up on my thing. I guess I should go live or create a schedule a stream. So yeah. So Patriots 2026 Super Bowl versus Seahawks. Live stream. Super Bowl versus Seahawks live stream. Title explains it all. Of course, I can't have the audio because they're going to get ticky. And I know about YouTube. They are really pissed. They would be really pissed. So slow mode will be about 15 seconds. Subscribers, you just have to be in for 1 minute. That's all you need to do to customization. Yeah, I'm just doing the customization public schedule for next Sunday, and we will start at 6 o'clock because we'll do some pregame stuff too. So, yep. So I'm just scheduling my stream. So yeah. Stream URL. It won't be stream URL yet, but I will do all that. So anyway, okay. So we got some stuff going on. All right. So I'm going to review all 11 Super Bowls that the Patriots have been in and all that. We'll start with the 5 Super Bowls plus the upcoming one for the losers and the winners. So basically we go from bad to good and all that. I'm going to give it to you in order of, most, let's see, from most painful to most ecstatic. Well, when you talk about the most painful Super Bowl loss, that's got to be 2000. Unfortunately, I can't share my screen because I would love to share my laptop screen right now because I have the 2007 Patriots thing on my thing. So anyway, the 2007 season was big for the Patriots, 38th in the NFL and 48th overall because they're an AFL squad. Tom Brady put up 50 touchdowns, getting his first MVP. Randy Moss joined the Patriots in a trade after the Raiders and got 23 receiving touchdowns and all that, becoming the 8th team in NFL history to finish the regular season undefeated and the first to do so after the merger since the 72 Dolphins and all that. The first 16-win regular season in history, the 1984 Niners, the 85 Bears, the 98 Vikings, and the 2004 Steelers all were 15-1. The 84 Niners won the Super Bowl 19 against Dan Marino. The 85 Bears winning Super Bowl 20 against the Pats, and yes, we'll talk more about that. The 98 Vikings, who should have went to the Super Bowl but lost to the Falcons. And people forget that the Falcons that year actually weren't that bad. They were 14-2. Believe it or not. And the 2004 Steelers, who the Pats beat to get to the Super Bowl in 2005. Anyway, yeah. So they have 350 point differential plus 315, the highest in NFL history. So anyway, Super Bowl 42 happened. The Patriots at 16-0 with the 1 seed in the playoffs took on the 5 seed New York Giants, who were 10-6. The Giants had to go through the ringer. The Giants had to go through Tampa in the wildcard round in Tampa. And Fox said, no, the Giants aren't going to beat the Bucs. Big mistake. The pundits said that the Giants were going to lose in Dallas in the divisional round because Dallas was 13-3 and Tony Romo and T.O. were having a great time. No, that's wrong. The Giants beat the Cowboys. And T.O. sniffled, that's my team, that's my quarterback. What a bitch. Then they went into Green Bay, frigid Green Bay at that, against Brett freaking Favre, and were expected to lose the NFC title game. We would see Brady versus Favre, which would be one of the best Super Bowl matchups of all time. But that didn't happen. Favre decided to throw an interception in overtime, which was stupid, and Lawrence Tynes, even though he missed 2 field goals, and he was once an Ottawa Renegade in the CFL, kicked the winning field goal. Giants faced the Pats. and the Giants won the game 17-14. The Pats were up 7-3 for the longest time after 3 periods. It was like shocking that only 10 points were scored in the first 3 quarters, and then the fourth quarter, 21 points were scored and all that. Eli Manning, 19 for 34, 255, 2 touchdowns and a pick for the Super Bowl MVP. The Patriots were 12-point favorites, but they fumbled it. Of course, the big moment of the game was David Tyree on a 3rd and 5 in the fourth quarter. Eli was being hustled by 2 guys, and he had to throw up a pass quickly, or else they would have said his momentum was backwards, meaning that it would have been a sack. So he threw up the ball, and David Tyree got the ball, but Ronnie Harrison was right there. So Tyree had to pin the ball to his helmet and hope Ronnie Harrison couldn't knock it away from it. And, he made the catch. Pascal Burris got a 13-yard touchdown run pass, 17-14, but then the Patriots could not get a first down. And, it was a very low-scoring game. It was the lowest, with 31 points, it was the lowest-scoring Super Bowl since Super Bowl IX back in 1975. So, that's amazing and all that. And it was the only Super Bowl in history, as of right now, with 3 fourth-quarter lead changes. So that's amazing. Massive Cinderella and all that. For Super Bowl 42. 97 million viewers watched this game and all that. So it was just massive and all that the Giants would beat us in the Super Bowl. So that was most painful. What's the next painful one? I would say the second most painful one is the 2018 Super Bowl against those pesky Eagles. Super Bowl 52 is the second most painful. The Eagles were 13-3. The Pats were 13-3. They both were the 1 seed, so it would be huge. The Pats were favored by 5.5 points. The game was held in Minneapolis at US Bank Stadium on the former site of the Metrodome. And then when the Eagles beat the Patriots, they made the NFC East the only division in NFL history which every team has won a Super Bowl. The East has had Philly, Washington, Dallas, and the Giants win a Super Bowl. So that's big. Minneapolis actually hosted the Super Bowl for only the second time. 1991 92 Super Bowl 26, Bills and Redskins were one of the most famous halftimes happened for all the wrong reasons. They called it a winter carnival one because they were trying to boost up Winter Olympics ratings because it was going to be in Albertville, France. So Dorothy Hamill and Brian Botano were doing figure skating in the halftime show. And unbeknownst to CBS, Fox decided to counter program with a special In Living Color doing football sketches. And they actually had the clock to get people to come back for the second half, even though that, CBS had the Super Bowl. Fox would have the NFC rights a couple years later. And that made the NFL so spooked, they decided to bring out the big guns for the halftime shows and all that. And Michael Jackson rocked it the next year. The Pats were 13-3. They looked pretty good. Their third trip to the finals in 4 years. And practically, Philly was in trouble because Carson Wentz was their quarterback at 11-2. They looked pretty good, but then they lost him, and everyone thought that Nick Foles from the University of Arizona was not going to work out. But somehow he shocked everyone by helping the Eagles win out, being the 1 seed, to take on the Pats and beat the Pats 41-33. Many records were set during Super Bowl 52. Most yards combined, 1,151. Fewest punts from both teams combined, 1. And the Patriots set the record for fewest punts, 0. The Pats had a chance to do it, but yeah, the Eagles kicked a field goal with 1:05 left to extend to 8 points, and Brady tried a Hail Mary pass that failed. Tom Brady also failed to make a spectacular catch on a flea flicker that could have helped the Pats out. Nick Foles shockingly became one of the most unbelievable Super Bowl MVPs. 28 for 43, 373 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, a pick, and a touchdown catch on 4th down on what they call the Philly special. And for the fifth time, the Patriots, it was the 5th time that the defending Super Bowl champs lost the next year's title game. 78 Cowboys, 83 Redskins, 97 Packers, and 2014 Seahawks were the ones. The Kansas City Chiefs would do that. Yeah, it was the Philly special. 103 million viewers watched the game, but the halftime show headlined by Justin Timberlake put up 106 million viewers. So yeah, so that was just very painful. The third most painful could be a loss in this year's Super Bowl 60 against Seattle. I say that because the other 3 Super Bowl losses don't really sting as much. Gotta check the chat room. Anyone in the chat room? Nope. Darn. Well, don't worry. You'll get to watch this live replay. So anyhow, Super Bowl 60, that will be coming out next week from Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara, California. Wish Brady was still playing for the Pats because, you know, he was a San Francisco Giant guy. No, San Francisco Niner fan growing up because he grew up in the San Francisco area. This is the second time that Levi's Stadium will host the Super Bowl. The previous time was 10 years ago in 2016 at Super Bowl 50 when Peyton Manning ended his career by beating Cam Newton and the 15-1 Panthers. So anyway, the Seahawks are 14-3. The Pats are 14-3. Both teams finished the same mark, but Seattle is a 1 seed. New England was a 2 seed because they lost on common opponents to the Denver Broncos for the chance to be the AFC's number 1 seed. And the funny thing was, do you know who screwed over the Pats hosting the AFC title game? And it would have been in like 10 inches of snow, as they say. That's right. Brady's team that he's co-owner of. Part owner of, the Las Vegas freaking Raiders. Because the Raiders beat the Pats in New England on week 1. Who knew that was going to be one of the highlights of the Raiders season? And they are, of course, the number 1 draft pick. And more than likely, they're going to get Fernando Mendoza from Indiana. So anyway, Seattle is favored by 4.5 points as of right now. I mean, things could happen and all that. So, yeah. Super Bowl 19 was held in the San Francisco area at Stanford Stadium when the Niners beat the Dolphins, and then Super Bowl 50, as I said. So, yeah, you got everything weird and all that. Levi's Stadium hosting it. So, yeah, they were 14-3. They narrowly missed the playoffs. And the Seahawks wanted to keep Geno Smith for the 25 season. But there was a contract dispute, and they traded him to Las Vegas. And then after they traded him, they picked up Sam Darnold, who was coming up for breakout season from Minnesota. But the Vikings knew that Darnold was struggling, and they actually put their faith in J.J. McCarthy. Big mistake because he got injured again. And then Seattle managed to get Darnold and all that. They would get rid of Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, their wide receivers, trading DK to Pittsburgh. But they picked up Cooper Kupp, the 2021 Offensive Player of the Year, after the Rams released him, which was shocking to a few of my friends. So, yeah, that's what happened. Seattle had the top scoring defense and all that. The Pats, you know, they were terrible. They were 4-13 the past 2 seasons. In fact, they beat Buffalo on the final day of the 2024 season, 24-25 season, and that cost them because that cost them the number 1 draft pick. If they had lost to Buffalo, they would have had the number 1 draft pick, but they beat Buffalo, so I think they had like the 4th. But anyway, yeah, they picked Drake May 3rd overall in the 2024 draft. And, you know, he was named to the Pro Bowl. Of course, the rule is with the Pro Bowl before the Super Bowl is that if you win the Pro Bowl bid, but you're playing the Super Bowl, you have to forfeit it. You'll still be credited with a selection, but you won't be able to play in the Pro Bowl. Anyway, there was a massive coaching turnover. Belichick parted ways after the 2023 season, and Jerry Mayo only lasted 1 year. So Mike Vrabel, who was coach of the year with the Titans in 2021, was picked to be the Patriots head coach, and he won 3 Super Bowls as a member of the Pats playing linebacker. Josh McDaniels came back to be offensive coordinator, which was huge because Josh McDaniels should not be a head coach. New England picked up Stefon Diggs from Minnesota and Houston. Houston had a good chance with Stefon Diggs, but then he had an ACL injury and ruined their season. New England took Travion Henderson from LSU in the second round of, or is it Ohio State? Sorry, OSU, who came off a national title with Ohio State in the second round of the 2025 draft. So yeah, they went to third offensively and second in points. They're now fourth in points defensively. So the Seahawks, as the 1 seed, got a bye. And Darnold had an injured oblique, but unfortunately, though, the Niners were routed by the Seahawks 41-6. It didn't help that they had many injuries. And then Zach Charbonnet had a torn ACL, so he's gone. Seattle would face the Rams in the NFC title game and sneak past the Rams 31-27, their first Super Bowl in 11 years. The Pats were the 2 seed, as I said, losing the tiebreak thanks to those pesky Raiders. They had to face the Chargers in the wildcard round, and great defense worked in the Patriots for the first time in 8 years, won a playoff game. Nice. In the division round against Houston, one of their best defenses, the Patriots screwed over the Texans with their defense, forcing 5 turnovers from Houston to win 28-16, despite May fumbling 4 times. The Patriots may have to go to Denver, but the good news for the Pats was that Jarrett Stidham was that quarterback, not Bo Nix, who suffered the knee injury against the Bills. The Pats were 0-4 in Denver in postseason games in history. In the snow, the Patriots won 10-7. Shocked everyone. All 3 playoff victories were against a top 5 defense. Against the Chargers? I didn't think they had a top 5 defense. Anyway, it'll be a rematch of what happened in 2015. Anywho. Yeah, this is the first Super Bowl since Super Bowl 38 that had the Pats and the Panthers in 2004. We'll talk about that later. To feature 2 teams that missed the playoffs this previous season. Man, that's a streak. 22 years. And it's the most unlikely Super Bowl matchup of the past 50 years based on preseason 60-1 and New England 80-1. So that combined makes it 4,800-1. The Seahawks actually have been to the Super Bowl all 4 times. They were the NFC's number 1 seed. And the Patriots were the first NFL team to be 9-0 in one season. They won their 8 regular season road games and then won their 9th in Denver. So anyway, it's weird. Darnold and May. Darnold was the second of 5 quarterbacks taken in the 2018 draft first round, and he's the first to make the Super Bowl. That's the Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson group. And Drake May was the third of 6 quarterbacks taken in the 2024 draft class in the first round too. Yeah, he was the third. He will be 23. He will be the second youngest quarterback to start in the Super Bowl since Dan Marino. Dan Marino's the only one. The Patriots were the home team, but decided to wear white. All that. They're the first home team to wear white since Tampa in 2020. So yeah, so NBC will be broadcasting this. It's a 4-year rotation between CBS, Fox, NBC, and even ABC/ESPN. NBC is charging $7 million for a 30-second, and will have bundling advertising sales with the concurrent 2026 Winter Olympics NBA All-Star Game that will be held the following week and all that. Mike Tirico will be calling the Super Bowl for only the second time in his career. Chris Collinsworth will be in his 6th Super Bowl as color commentator. Canada, of course, it will be sim sub to CTV and TSN, meaning that we'll get the NBC stuff. And NBC, right after the game, will be broadcasting Winter Games coverage. All that. Charlie Puth, the pop singer, will sing the national anthem. Brandy Carlisle will sing America the Beautiful. And halftime will have Bad Bunny, part of the halftime show, but of course President Trump won't be there because he hates those Latino members. Okay, so the next stingiest loss is 2011 Patriots in Super Bowl 46. The Giants and Patriots were going to face each other for the first time in 4 years. This was in 2012 in Indianapolis, the first time Indiana got to host the Super Bowl. Everyone figured the RCA Dome would be in contention to host the Super Bowl while it was still around, but it was like not a good stadium. And then Lucas Oil Stadium, the new one in Indy, got to host the Super Bowl. The Giants were 9-7. They were even worse than their 2008 season. Well, their 2008 run. They were the 4 seed at 9-7. They actually won their division because the Giants were the 4 seed, and the top 4 teams, the 4 division winners, are going 1, 2, 3, 4. The Pats were the best team in the AFC, going 13-3. The Pats were favored by only 2.5 points this time. So yeah, the Giants shocked everyone. They won 21-17 in a close one. And of course, Mario Manningham actually made an amazing sideline catch and all that. Eli went 30 for 40, 296 yards, a touchdown, no picks. He was named Super Bowl MVP for the second time in his career. 111 million people on average watched the Super Bowl and all that. So yeah, it was shocking. Like, the Giants were 9-7. They managed to win the NFC East. Well, they took on the Cowboys. Both teams were 8-7. Winner take all for the division, and the Giants beat the Cowboys. Then the Giants were the 4th seed, so they went to the playoffs. And the Giants hosted the Atlanta Falcons and held them to only 2 freaking points. And then they went to Green Bay to face the Packers, who were 15-1. And the Giants once again beat the Packers in Green Bay in the playoffs. I even said Giants were going to beat the Packers because I'm like, 4 years prior, the Giants beat the Pack. And it worked out quite well. Then the Giants went to San Francisco. That was when Kyle Williams made 2 terrible muffs off of punt returns. And that helped the Giants win in overtime. So that's what they did. The Pats won. They could have fumbled their chance in the playoff, but Billy Cundiff of the Ravens missed the field goal wide left. It was way wide left. Some say that it was the ghost of Myra Kraft, who was Robert Kraft's wife, the owner of the team. So yeah, the Giants beat the Pats, and of course, pissing me off. Next up on the the 5th most painful loss is the 96 Patriots, losing Super Bowl number 31 to the Packers. The Pats were number 2 in the AFC at 11-5. The Packers were number 1 at 13-3. So the Packers looked pretty good. They were looking to bring a title back to Green Bay for the first time in almost 3 decades. And this was huge. The AFC had lost 12 straight Super Bowls to the NFC. The Patriots were the 2 seed. The 1 seed were the Denver Broncos, but they fell in the divisional round to what the Rocky Mountain News called the Jaguars. To you and me, it's the Jacksonville Jaguars, who shocked everyone. Mark Brunell beating Denver in Denver, and then they went to New England, and Pats won. The Packers, the Jaguars were a second-year team. So, too, were the Panthers, the second-year team that went into Green Bay in the NFC title game and lost. It was pretty impressive and all that. And this is the last time that the Pats have been, 97 was the last time the Pats went to the Super Bowl that did not have either Brady or Belichick until this year. So, yeah, it's the first time in 3 decades that the Pats make the Super Bowl but don't have either Brady or Belichick on their roster. The team scored 24 first-quarter points, Pats with 14, Green Bay with 10, making it the most in Super Bowl history. Then the Packers scored 17 unanswered, and then Desmond Howard, after the Pats closed it to 27-21, ran one back 99 yards for a kickoff return for a touchdown. The defenses worked, and Desmond Howard was named Super Bowl MVP, even though it should have went to Brett Favre, and we knew it. And Fox, for the first time, got to host the Super Bowl. Under its first contract to carry NFL games, Fox got to host the Super Bowl. NBC and ABC were doing the one. Well, NBC did 96. ABC did 95. 94 was CBS. Or was it CBS? Yeah, 94 was CBS. Was it CBS or was it NBC? I think it was NBC. Well, nevertheless, Fox, this was their first Super Bowl. And Packers won 35-21. Desmond Howard did his job. And that's when the Raiders decided to sign Desmond Howard. They also signed Larry Brown, who also was Super Bowl MVP the previous year. But those 2 were flops in Oakland. So, yeah, it was huge and all that. And then The least painful loss in New England Patriots history was Super against the Chicago Bears. The Bears were the lead, the Pats were the 5 seed in 1985. The Bears were crushing it. They won 15 games. They lost in Miami on Monday Night Football to, guess who? The Dolphins. And they had members of the 72 Dolphins stand on the sidelines to try to intimidate the Bears, and it worked. The Patriots were a massive underdog. They were 11-5. They managed to make it in as a wild card based on tiebreakers. I don't know if they explained their tiebreakers or not. So the funny thing is that this was the 4th and last Super Bowl in 1986 to have both teams making their Super Bowl debuts. Not just one team makes their Super Bowl debut, but both. This can only happen if the Lions get to the Super Bowl and face either Jacksonville, Cleveland, or Houston, who haven't been to any Super Bowls among themselves. Chicago had a great defense and all that, 2 postseason shutouts in their 2 games before the Super Bowl. So, yeah, the Patriots just crushed them 46-10. The game wasn't even funny. There was one massive controversy in which Walter Payton didn't score a touchdown in the Super Bowl, yet the refrigerator did. I think everyone figured that the Bears were going to come back to the Super Bowl and Walter Payton was going to get his touchdown. But technically, no. So, yeah, NBC had 92 million viewers. And then they also had the halftime thing about Hands Across America, which Bill Cosby and Lily Tomlin were promoting this thing that people would go across America and hold hands and all that. But it didn't work out so long. So, yeah, the Patriots scored a touchdown in the 4th quarter, but they almost got brutalized by the Bears. Yeah, they were a Cinderella thing. New England actually were 2-3 to start the year, but finished with an 11-5 mark, tying them with Miami and the Jets and all that. The Patriots ended up qualifying. I wonder how they qualified. Yeah, because, the system was that there were only 2 wildcard teams. Back in 1985, the 3 divisional winners and 2 wildcard teams met. The 2 wildcard teams would meet in the playoffs, and the winner would face the 1 seed. If the wildcard winner was in the same division as the 1 seed, this case the Raiders or Bears, they would have to face the 2 seed. The Pats and the Jets would face each other in the 1-game wildcard in New York at Shea Stadium. Is it? No, Giant Stadium. I thought Shea Stadium was still around, but yeah. Yeah, it was funny because Giant Stadium got to host both the Jets and the Giants in their wildcard games. The Giants won, but the Jets didn't. So New England would face the Jets and would play the Raiders because they were not in the same division. Giants and Niners would play each other. Fortunately, though, the winner of that game would face the Bears automatically because none of the other 2 teams were not part of the Central. Yeah, I was wondering, how did the 85 Patriots make it? They were the 2nd wild card ahead of Denver because of better record against common opponents, 4-2 to Broncos 3-3, which is crazy because the Broncos were 11-5 and they set the record for most wins by a team that did not make the playoffs. So they were the 2nd wild card. The Jets beat them, went to LA to beat the Raiders 27-20 in a shocker, and then they beat Miami at the Orange Bowl 31-14 to make it to the Super Bowl. It was shocking because not only did Miami beat Chicago and Chicago gave Chicago their only loss of the regular season, but the Pats had never won in the Orange Bowl since 1966 when both teams were in the AFL. The Bears ended up beating both the Giants and Rams by shutout. So that's how good their defense was. Okay, so we got that. Now let's talk about the 6 Super Bowls from most ecstatic to least ecstatic. Well, Super Bowl 53 is the least ecstatic with me. I'm going to say Super Bowl 53 because it was 13-3. It was boring. It was in Atlanta, which was ironic because the Pats had taken care of the Falcons 2 years prior And I bet you fans wanted the Rams to win the Super Bowl because of what the Pats did to the great Falcons a couple years later. Earlier, the Pats and Rams both were the 2 seed. The Pats only won 11 games. The Rams won 13 games. And all that. The Patriots, this was their 6th and most current Super Bowl win. Sean McVay at 33 became the youngest head coach in the Super Bowl. To put that in context, he's almost the same age as yours truly. And the Rams were in their Super Bowl for only the 2nd time as the LA Rams. A couple of times they went to they were the St. Louis Rams when they went to the Super Bowl, and the Pats played them in one of them. Los Angeles, this was only the first time LA got to be in the Super Bowl as an LA team since the Raiders in 1984 in Super Bowl 18. It was the lowest scoring Super Bowl in NFL history with 16 points scored, 13-3 was the final score. It was 3-3 through 3 quarters. It was like shocking. Then the Pats scored 10 unanswered points. The Rams were only the 2nd team in the Super Bowl era to not score a touchdown. The Dolphins in Super Bowl 6 didn't score a touchdown. They only scored 3 points against the Cowboys. And no, of course, that was not the perfect season. That was the next season. Ada Weiss, a.k.a. Julian Edelman, 10 catches, 141 yards, Super Bowl MVP. And Belichick became the oldest head coach to win the Super Bowl at 41 and 66, respectively. Man, if Brady could win the Super Bowl at 41 years old, and I'm 40, too late. The halftime show saw the smallest Super Bowl attendance in 10 years. And Maroon 5 didn't help matters in the Super Bowl halftime show because of the whole thing with their terrible performance and all that. It actually was kind of a turning point in my life because it actually turned out that Super Bowl 53 was the first time I got to watch a sporting event with my good buddy Bill after we had a falling out a couple of months earlier. But we patched things up, so, that's all I got to say about that. And we watched Super Bowl 53 together. We broke bread and, we became fast friends. And for the past 7 years, I've kept up to my tongue saying, don't lose them again. So that's what happened. Okay, so which one? Another, let me see. Which else is like more lucid? Super Bowl 39 was the 2nd most lucid of them. I know the score was 24-21 New England over Philly, but I didn't really feel that ecstatic about winning Super Bowl 39 as much as the other 4 Super Bowls. But yeah, on the list. But yeah, Patriots, Eagles. I say number 5 is Super Bowl 39. It was 24-21, the only time Jacksonville hosted the Super Bowl, which is a shame. I mean, Jacksonville's got a decent stadium. The Patriots were 14-2, the 2 seed in the AFC playoffs. The Eagles were number 1, 13-3. The Eagles finally got the monkey off their back. After they lost the NFC title game in the last 3 years, they finally won one for Andy Reid and Donovan McNabb, proving they weren't chokers after all. The Patriots were, even though they had more wins than the Eagles, mostly because there was another Pennsylvania team that was 15-1. Yes, those guys, the Pittsburgh Steelers, when Ben Roethlisberger came in for an ineffective Tommy Maddox and won 13 straight games as quarterback, which is amazing. Roethlisberger, coming from the University of Miami of Ohio, known more for their credo of coaches than actual players playing for the Red Hawks. I think they were called something else, but of course, the whole Native American thing. But nevertheless, the Patriots, were favored by 7 points. And when they won the Super Bowl 39, it was their 2nd straight, and they became the last team to go back-to-back until the Chiefs went back-to-back in 2024. So yeah, the Eagles were making their 2nd Super Bowl appearance. Super Bowl 15 was their only time in the Super Bowl. Prior to that, and basically, what is that guy's name? Crap. The guy who, Rod Martin, basically made Ron Jaworski's life a living hell that game. But yeah, the Pats won 24-21. It was actually a close game. It was 14-14 at the end of the 3rd quarter. The Eagles were down 24-21 with 1:48 left, but could not do anything. The Pats forced 4 turnovers, and Deion Branch with 133 receiving yards and 11 catches was named Super Bowl MVP. Basically, the league made Paul McCartney become a safe choice during Super Bowl 39's halftime, and yeah, I'll explain it more when we talk about Super Bowl 38. Eagles would get their revenge 13 years later, winning 41-33. It was actually shocking that Jacksonville got it and all that. It was either them, Miami, or even Oakland. I'm surprised Oakland's never hosted a Super Bowl and all that. It was just like unbelievable and all that. But yeah, anyway, that's what happened. So yeah, Super Bowl 39 just seemed a little too lucid. Then you got Super Bowl 38. I rank it number 4 on this list. Super Bowl 38. When Carolina took on New England, the Pats were the 1 seed in the AFC, 14-2. Carolina was the 3 seed at 11-5. Carolina made a massive upset of the St. Louis Rams in the divisional round, winning in double overtime on a Steve Smith catch of 69 yards. Stop it. Stop snickering. But yeah, Carolina then went to Philly and beat the Eagles, giving them their 3rd straight NFC title game loss. This game, Carolina, New England would be played at Houston at Reliant Stadium. It was the most watched Super Bowl ever at the time. Of course, this was 2004. The Panthers' first time in the Super Bowl, almost a decade after they came into the league and all that. And shocking as it was, Beyonce's national anthem was one of the best moments of the day. Yeah, it was one of the greatest Super Bowls of all time. Strange as it sounds, Carolina and New England scored nothing in the first and third quarters. The 61 points this game had, 32-29, were in the 2 quarters. 24 points in the second quarter, 37 in the fourth. Amazing. Yeah, it was a Super Bowl record, 37 points in the fourth quarter. Carolina outscored New England 19-18, but they lost the game 32-29 on an unintentional 41-yard field goal. Tom Brady would be named MVP and all that. So, yeah. Houston got it because Houston was just coming back off the schneid of losing an NFL franchise and gaining one back. So, yeah, Pats won 32-28. But that was, of course, not the main story to come out of this game. The main story coming out of the game was the halftime show in which MTV produced it. Justin Timberlake and Janet Jackson were finishing out it with Justin Timberlake singing Rock Your Body to Janet Jackson. And then, the line, I'm going to have you naked by the end of the song. And then ripped open Jackson's costume, hoping to reveal a bra, but he ripped open the bra pipe. And for half a second, Janet's right breast with a nipple shield was adorned and all that. Was there to see. The NFL, of course, had a problem because many fans watched the halftime show more so than the actual game. I was actually not one of them. I did have the halftime show on in the background and all that while I was reading a football book that my sister bought for me for Christmas. I paid no heed to the halftime show because I'm like, it's just a stupid halftime show. Lo and behold, it wasn't a stupid halftime show. I was still living at home with my parents. Well, this was my gap year between high school and college. And my brother came by on the Monday and said, did you watch the Super Bowl? And I'm like, of course I did. The Patriots beat the Panthers and all that. And this actually happened 22 years ago today because the date was February 1st, 2004. I remember because my dad, there was going to be a birthday celebration for my dad at Swiss Chalet, and I chose not to go because I didn't want to miss the Super Bowl. That could have cost me dearly. I would have been like, fuck. Why did I do that? I jinxed myself. But yeah, anyway, New England beat Carolina in the Super Bowl. I'm happy about that as being a Patriots fan. This was my first Super Bowl as a Patriots fan for the Patriots. 86, I was only 1 year old. 97, I was not a Pats fan. And 2002, I was not a Pats fan. So, this was the first Super Bowl I celebrated as a Pats fan. And, of course, the halftime show really caused a lot of trouble. CBS was fined over $500,000. They added a 5-second delay to all sporting events. the NFL freaked out and said that halftime shows would be with safe bets like Paul McCartney, the Rolling Stones, Prince, you know, old school acts that won't cause controversy and all that. I don't know when the next time a young up and comer actually performed at halftime. Yeah, the NFL freaked. What's worse was Janet Jackson's treatment after Nipplegate because lots of people in the States basically blacklisted her from the Grammys and the music stuff and all that. So she was basically ruined. Canada didn't have any major complaints. I think there was like six, right? There were like six. Um, yeah, there was only like six complaints and all that. So yeah, the halftime show and all that. So yeah, so it was just terrible and all that because of the whole halftime show. Yeah, Canada only got like six complaints because they didn't understand what was going on. Yeah, and Justin Timberlake escaped kind of almost unscathed, but he really unscathed. He was basically unscathed because of the treatment. And at the time, 2004, like it was customary to basically support male white singers more so than black um, women singers, which is the stupidest shit you can ever think of. I can't believe it's so prejudiced, like 20 plus freaking years later. But yeah, poor Janet. I feel for her. Anyway, the third biggest Super Bowl for me was Super Bowl 49 between the Pats and the Seahawks from Arizona's University of Phoenix Stadium. The second Super Bowl at that stadium. The first was 2009. No, not 2009. What am I thinking? The first one was 2008 when the Giants ruined the Patriots' perfect season. Patriots, I think, were not so keen to go back to Arizona because of what happened last time. The Patriots were the number one seed, 12-4. The Seahawks were number one, 12-4 as well. So it was such that there was no favorite. It was what they call a toss-up, which is rare and all that. The lines are a pick 'em, which is unusual. Seahawks had their Legion of Boom defense. The Pats had good offense. It was basically something had to give. Would the Seahawks go back to back, becoming the first team to do so since the Pats of 2005? Or will the Pats ruin Seattle's chances and all that? The score was 28-24. Seattle was up by 10 after three quarters, but the Pats scored two touchdowns in the fourth quarter to beat Seattle. And, the last moments were huge. Brady put up 37 completions. He was named Super Bowl MVP for the third time, tying Joe Montana's record. Katy Perry had a good halftime show, which saw the left shark become viral for all the wrong reasons, I guess. Yeah. So there was an initial plan for Kansas City to get it and all that, but they couldn't improve Arrowhead, so they had to withdraw the request for Super Bowl 49 and all that. So yeah, that's when Arizona got it. So yeah, Patriots won 28-24. Great job. Fourth quarter, the Pats were up by 4. Seattle was charging down the field. Russell threw a weird pass to Jermaine Kearse, who had it bounce up and down, and then he managed to catch this. And, we almost saw, shades of 2008 all over again and the same stadium. Kearse made the play. Seattle was down at the 1-yard line, and instead of giving it to beast mode or anybody else running the ball for that matter, they decided to pass the ball. Malcolm Butler anticipated it, got the interception, and the Patriots won the Super Bowl and making Pete Carroll look like a total douchebag with that move. And this is coming from a Pats fan, too. I thought Seattle was going to run it in. Now, contrary to popular belief, I actually did not watch this Super Bowl, even though I'm a Pats fan. You may be asking why. Well, simple. I was working that day. You'd be thinking, how can you work during the Super Bowl? Well, I was working at Target. And Target, when it came to Canada for its disastrous near 2-year run, my seller, I worked at Sellers. It closed in 2013, and then it got turned into a Target. I helped build Target and all that too. But then, I was working at Target and all that, the khaki pants. What was I thinking? But yeah, the Pats were beating Seattle. The game was actually still on when I got home from work, but I didn't want to jinx myself saying I missed the Super Bowl and all that. I didn't even get to watch the Super Bowl while I was at work. So anyhow, that was huge. But yeah, the Patriots and the Seahawks 28-24 and all that. So I didn't see first run Seattle's boo-boo, but I saw it during the highlights. So yeah, it was big. All right, for me, what's the second best Super Bowl of all time? I say Super Bowl 36. For the Pats, Super Bowl 36, number 2. Because this would decide the 2001 championship in 2002, the Super Bowl in New Orleans at the Superdome. The Rams were the 1 seed, 14-2. They were running away with the NFC, trying for their second title in 3 years. And the Pats were number 2 seed at 11-5 and all that. In fact, as I look at the wiki page, it was the first time the AFC East won a Super Bowl since 1974, a 28-year drought, and the division had lost 8 Super Bowls, 4 of them Buffalo. Anyway, the game was played in Louisiana Super Bowl in February 2002. It was supposed to be played in January 27th. The only problem was that, that happened. Yep, terrorist attack, 9/11. Don't need to explain it. Sports had to take a back seat for at least a week and all that. Now, I think New Orleans had an issue or something with the date being February 3rd because of the car show or something. But yeah, this was the last Super Bowl in New Orleans until 2013 when the lights went out and all that. Yeah, I think there was a thing. I think New Orleans had some problems or something like that. Yeah, one of the significant logistical challenges was that the National Automotive Dealers Association, or NADA, had a convention at the Super Bowl February the 3rd. But the Automobile Dealers Association in October did agree to move the convention to the original Super Bowl date, January 27th, in exchange for financial compensation. So yeah, that's what happened. So that's why. And U2 did the halftime show, which was not controversial. It was one of the greatest halftime shows of all time. It was very patriotic. U2, even when they played "When the Streets Have No Name," and then the names of the victims were on a board behind them. It was just shocking. Like, that really touched the feels and all that, even from Canada. But yeah, the Rams had the greatest show on turf. Pats were up 17-3. The Rams tied it at 17. Late in the fourth quarter, it looked like the Rams and Pats were going to go overtime. John Madden even said we might have to go to overtime. But Pat Summerall on Fox says, "Now, just wait a minute." And then Brady took it down. Vinatieri kicked the winning field goal. And, of course, it was funny seeing Lonnie Paxton make snow angels in the end zone, even though there was no snow in New Orleans. But that started the Patriots dynasty, 20-17, and ruined the Rams dynasty, as the Rams would falter for years afterwards, and Kurt Warner would be shipped both to the Giants and the Cardinals to end his glorious career. Kurt Warner did get back to the Super Bowl in 2009. But yeah, it was amazing. The Rams were 14-point favorites. I believed it. Yeah, Super Bowl 36. Like, who knew that the Patriots were going to make a dynasty? And who knew that, the Patriots were going to get there because, of the fact, the 1 seed was the Pittsburgh Steelers, who actually touchdown Tommy Maddox was making a bit of a comeback. Was it Tommy Maddox? Yeah. Pittsburgh signed Tommy Maddox from the XFL, and he became the quarterback. He usurped Cordell Stewart. So, yeah, that was big. And you know how the Patriots season started. They were 0-2. Drew Bledsoe was knocked out by Mo Lewis. And then Tom Brady, sixth quarterback pick in the 2000 NFL draft, he came in and he helped the Patriots do well. And number 1 is got to be Super Bowl 51, 28-3. Needed to say more. Well, I should say more. The Patriots were down 28-3. That was when I kind of shut off the game. I was like, I can't stand this anymore. Little did I know the Pats would score 25 straight points, tie the game, and then through Facebook, I found out the game was in overtime. So I flipped to the TV. Overtime, James White, touchdown, Pats. Phew. I got a lot of flack from Bill for turning off the game, and so I should. Anyway, the Pats were 14-2, number 1 in the AFC. The Falcons were number 2 at 11-5. I'm just trying to think, who was number 1? Was it the Eagles that year? Can't remember, right? Yeah. The Patriots took their 5th Super Bowl title, one behind the Steelers at the time. Of course, the first time that the Super Bowl would be decided in overtime, and first NFL championship since 1958 to be decided in overtime. I don't know. Well, I know the AFL had a few title games decided in overtime, but that doesn't count. Yeah. The Falcons had Matty Ice, Matt Ryan, who was named MVP. It was 28-3, and then the Patriots scored 25 straight points. Tom Brady would become the Super Bowl MVP for the 4th time, breaking a record. 111 million viewers watched the game on average. Lady Gaga's halftime show was 117 million, where she did that jump off the thing. So, yeah, Houston got to host the Super Bowl. 13 years prior, the Pats beat the Panthers for the Super Bowl at, of course, Nipplegate. Patriots were only favored by 3 points at the time. Yeah, anywhere. Houston had some stuff going about. Yeah, the Falcons were the 2 seed. So in the playoffs, they were the 2 seed. They beat Seattle in the division round, and then they hosted Green Bay. Oh yeah, who did Green Bay beat? Who was the 1 seed? Because they hosted the NFC title game. 2017, who was the 1 seed in the NFC? The Cowboys were the 1 seed in 2017. I didn't even think that was gonna. I didn't think Dallas was the 1 seed. Yeah, Green Bay beat Dallas 34-31 thanks to that catch that almost wasn't a catch, and then the field goal. I didn't think the Cowboys were number 1 in the thing, but yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I didn't even realize that. Yeah, that great play by Cook, who made the catch, and they thought it was out of bounds, but it was a catch. And then Crosby kicked a 51-yard field goal to give Green Bay the win. I didn't think Dallas was the 1 seed that year. I didn't even think that way. Yeah, I guess I didn't realize the Cowboys were the 1 seed in 2017. When I know the Packers beat them by that ignorance mark, but I forgot the Cowboys were the 1 seed. I know the Falcons hosted the NFC title game and won. So Super Bowl 51. Hopefully, the Patriots win this one. And just a reminder, next Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, we start streaming the Super Bowl 60. You won't see any game action or audio because, I don't want to get YouTube pissed off at me. So yeah, we'll do some stuff. I'll talk about some sports with everybody if you indulge me. And of course, if you're watching this on replay, just know that it's safe to be on other stuff while you're listening to me and all that. Interact with me as much as you can. That'll be nice. But, I'm not going to beg for interaction. I just can't. So anyway, that's all I got. 60 minutes talking about the Patriots' 11 Super Bowl appearances. Well, and this one, Super Bowl 20 for number 12. That's pretty good. 5 minutes per Super Bowl. That seems like a good stat. So anyway, thanks for watching. I'm off to watch RJL Network's baseball stream. I'm Jeff Diamond. Adieu.